Thank you for your patience. Woo! Man, I don't know what happened. This never happened with me and Rob. We was having
You ain't hot yet, Rick.
huh?
You ain't hot yet.
Oh man.
I mean, you ain't on the live yet.
Oh no, I'm live. I'm live. No, we live. We live right
Just
now.
not still normally show up on here. Just say schedule.
Damn, this
There we
family.
go.
You got it? You got it?
Yeah, I got an echo and a delay too.
Okay. I'm an echo. Can you hear me good?
I'm echoing back.
Oh. Yeah,
I
we
got,
dealing with we dealing with a few technical difficulties. Bear with us tonight, family. We gonna make it happen regardless. Don't know what's going on, but Rod Hayes, welcome back, my brother.
Thank you, brother Rich. Appreciate you having me back. As always, gratitude. First order of the day. The most unused superpower a man can.
Indeed, indeed. Listen, Rod, man. This is one of them shows. This is a real important one, Rod. This is pre-creation talk right here. This ain't American, this ain't African, this ain't Asian, this ain't Anunnaki, this is pre-solar system talk.
Pure
You know what I mean?
metaphysics.
You know what I'm saying? This is this ether, man. Listen, this is some strong shit. This is some strong shit. This is the ether is what Nas used to destroy Hove in a rap battle. You know what I
Stuff to
mean?
make your soul burn slow.
Make your burn burn slow. Yes, yes, sir. Very important topic tonight. I want to welcome everybody to the chat. Thank you for your patience, family. Thank you for your patience. Yeah, it's just real good talk going into 2025, a 9-year. Y'all know about that 9 ether energy. And the talk was inspired. I had called Rod Hayes last week. And I always call Rod Hayes just to chop it up with him about certain spiritual concepts. And I told Rod Hayes, and this is going to be the first book. I told y'all before, I'm doing book reviews on the channel. I think I'm going to start either next week or the week after next. And this is the first book that I'm doing the book review on. I think I'm going to do the book reviews every Monday or Tuesday. I'm going to see. But yeah, the divine matrix deals with this mysterious force that has many names. In antiquity, Plato and them called the ether. Some people call it the quantum field. Greg Braden calls it the divine matrix. A lot of different names for this field, this invisible force, this invisible energy that's out there that permeates, contains, that's the bridge, and that is just the essence of the whole universe. Very, very mysterious force that a lot of scientists deny exists. A lot of, Tesla talked about it. And matter of fact, let me say one of Tesla's quotes. If I have it on me right now, I don't know if I just had it. I don't. Yeah, Tesla actually said, their ether is the medium for every electromagnetic wave, from radio waves to gamma waves. So, when a lot of times I read things and sometimes I don't understand what the word means, and I just keep reading. Hold up. So I want to, because this is very important. So I want to let y'all know exactly what he meant by let me see. All right. So one of the definitions for medium is the intravenous substance through which impressions are conveyed to the senses, or force acts on objects at a distance. Then this is Oxford Dictionary. It says radio communication needs no physical medium between the two stations. That's what they're saying. This is Google. But Tesla
Between the station and the receiver.
But Tesla's saying there is a medium. They just can't detect it. There is a medium
Right.
that carries all waves. So, Rod, this mysterious medium, and let me just read this before we start. I want to give a nice intro. Let me read this before the start. Rod, this section is called The Origin of the Matrix. Let me read this. Then we're gonna get started, and we're gonna be cooking in here, family. Be patient. All right. Mainstream scientists today believe that our universe began between 13 and 20 billion years ago with a massive explosion unlike anything that had ever existed before or has existed since. Although there are conflicting theories about the precise timing and whether there were single or multiple explosions, there appears to be a general agreement that our universe began with a massive release of energy a long time ago. In 1951, astronomer Fred Hoyle coined the term for the infallible explosion that is still used today. He named it the Big Bang. Researchers have calculated that just fractions of a second before the Big Bang occurred, our universe was much, much smaller than it is today. Computer models suggest that it was so small, in fact, that it was tightly compressed into a tiny ball. With all the empty space removed from what we see as the universe today, that ball is to believe to be around the size of a single green pea. While it may have been tiny, it certainly wasn't cool. However, the model suggests that the temperature within the compact space was an unimaginable 18 billion million degrees Fahrenheit, many times hotter than the present temperature of the sun. Within a fraction of a second following the Big Bang, the simulations show that the temperatures may have cooled to a balmy 18 billion degrees or so, and the birth of our universe was well underway. I'm going to read this last paragraph. As the Big Bang's explosive force ripped through the emptiness of the existing void, it carried with it more than just the heat and light that we expect. It also burst forth as a pattern of energy that became the blueprint for all that is now and all that can ever be. It's this pattern that the subject of ancient myth, timeless lore, and mystical wisdom, with names that range from the Buddhist sutras net of Indra to the Hopi tradition's web of spider grandmother, the echo of that pattern remains today. So when we think about net, when we talk about web, I think about the internet and how the internet connects us all together right now, as far as technology that we use externally. So if we have the internet that connects us all, the Ethernet connects us all in a whole nother way. Let's talk about the Big Bang. Let's talk about this Ethernet. Let's talk about Star Wars said the Force. May the Force be with you. Rod, you broke this shit down to me on the phone, Rod. So come on. Let's talk about this ether that's out there, my brother. Talk to me.
Okay, so you ever heard of something called Orgon energy?
Yes, sir. Yep. Mm-hmm.
The original discoveries of Orgon energy was something called an ether accumulator.
Okay.
You got what's called a clean accumulator. It comes through opaque, almost clear. Mm-hmm. And then you have the dirty accumulator, and when it comes through, it's filled with soot, which gives it the appearance of being black.
Uh-huh.
Right? So the ether of itself is like a aquatic field. Mm-hmm. Right? So now we're using water as a frame of reference, because water is the physical similitude of spirit.
What that word mean? Rob, what that word means? Similitude. What's that?
The meaning, the similarities in the two.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Right. So the physical representation of spirit is water. Because water permeates all things, and you can accumulate the water, but you can't keep the water trapped because it's going to always find its way back. Right. So this is taking something from a source, is showing you a metaphoric link,
right,
in cycles. As the water cycles, it goes through a water phase, gas phase. When it's frozen, it's in this solid phase. Right? When it becomes steam, it's a gas. But when you refine the steam even further, it's a vapor. A vapor is the mirror to what the ether is. Right? So remember when Obi-Wan told Luke, he said, the Force, Luke, is neither good nor bad, but it is the intention applied that makes it so. Right? So that means that a person with good intentions can make a mistake and something good can come out of it. Because the intention that he started with was good. The person with ill will at the beginning can try to do something good, but it's going to go to crap because his intentions wasn't good. Right? So now you manipulating the ether. You determining by what's in you how you can move the ether to the good side or the bad side, or the positive and the negative, or the malevolent or the benevolent. right?
Mm-hmm.
So now this brings in the Hermetic law opposites being applicable to the ether,
Right.
the poles, the law opposites.
Mm-hmm.
That means that the ether can be either of the extremes and everything in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the people, our character can be either of the extremes or can fall anywhere in the middle, but the goal is to always bump straight. I mean, don't get stuck to the left, don't get stuck to the right. Stop taking sides in other people's drama. Right? So as the ether accumulates, they told us at the Big Bang that it formed something called a pea-sized thing that they called the black dot.
Right.
Ironically, he didn't call it the black dot in the article, but it's a Scientific America article from the 90s that talk about it, what he's talking about. And it's showing you the model, and then it have what looked like a net coming out of the center of the Big Bang in a funnel-like shape, right? This is supposed to be the effect of the Big Bang, right? So I say that's when they turned on the simulator.
That's
why do I say that? Because if you turn on the light, and sometimes you could actually see the spark that jumps out of the switch.
Right.
Because the spark have to make a connection, meaning that the loop got to be closed in order for it to cycle. Right. So the same way that they talk about it in science, Malachi wrote about it in the Holy Tablets. He said the dot became a line. The line was infinite until it decided to shift to an angle. Right. Once it shifted to an angle, this created the square from the dot.
Ooh, okay.
And then the square flipped the dot out on the other side. And now the circle is flipping out of the square, and the square is flipping out of the circle. Right. At the same time. So in metaphysics, it's called flux flow between two-dimensional paradigms simultaneously. Right. That means it's phasing in and phasing out. Right. That's the flux flow. Remember the flux capacitor from Back to the Future was able to jump between parallels in order to triangulate into a position in the future. Right. Wow. Right. So that's called the flux flow capacitor. Right. And the flux flow, if you're looking at it in the physical, it'll look like it disappears and reappears. But it never disappeared. It just went into an alternate reality, a different frequency of expressing itself. Right. So now you have what's called the octave scale, which mirrors the music scale. Yes. Right. These are the building blocks of what we call creational fabric. Right. Then they talk about how the dark matter permeates everything. Right. But the dark matter is no one thing. It's everything simultaneously all at once. Right. So they telling us the nature of dark matter. It's the same as the physical expression of water. So then in Egypt, it's referred to as the primordial waters or the primordial noon, N-U-N, where the term nuns came from. Talk to him, Ron. The great festival of the Catholic Church that was stolen from the matriarchs is the Dark Mother is supposed to sit on the sacerdotal seat, and she's supposed to wear black. And all of the nuns was supposed to be in white. Right. And then she officiates over the ceremony. And now where the women who wore the red, which represented the bloodline, has been replaced by some people they call cardinals. Now, all of these is just replacing the order that was already there with masculine gender and reassigning the roles of the nunnery. Right? So this is ancient. The nunnery is ancient, but the application of it today under the control of patriarchal homotesticles is new. Right? But it's all, the primordial noon was expressed in the ritual where the women in white went to the dark mother, which represent prime creator, as the embodiment in the physical realm of those primordial noon. Right? And this is where you get your Isis seat as the sacerdotal seat. It's the great mother seat. Right? But she's subservient to Big Mama, Tawaret, who dwells in the sky, in the center of the zodiac. Right? So now you got prime creator, Tawaret, telling the earth mother, Isis, that we need to clean up, crew, cleaning up. We looking at it through modernized religion, dogma, and social engineering programs used to steer how we perceive what's taking place. In the primordial ether, it's the closest thing that when the physical form, even more close than water, where I can explain it is like sound, a heavy bass sound. Right? So like when you in the club and you standing in front of the speaker and you feel that bass hitting all the way through your chest, that's the character of the ether. It's always there, pounding from the inside and the outside simultaneously. Right. It's permeating all things. I mean, everything is saturated with it. And even when you get down to the string theory, all particles is created from light.
Yes, sir.
Right? And then when you get to the Higgs boson, you realize that once the strings of light was tied up in the knots, you can generate matter, the God particle.
Wait, you said once the strings, now we're talking about these etheric streams was tied into knots, you can generate matter.
Right.
Rod, now, this No, I'm gonna take a note. Okay, Rod.
Yeah. So they replicated with the Hadron Collider in order to extract the Higgs boson. They have to collide two electrons together. Right. When they slam into each other, all of these other particles are produced as the byproduct of that collision, which simulates the Big Bang. When 2012, on December, I think 26th, they discovered the Higgs boson, right? Which tells them that this is the particle responsible for what we call density of matter. But when you look at it under the microscope, it's still an electron and it still follows the laws of the string theory. Right? So the only answer is the explosion causes it to tie up into a knot. From the force and power of the explosion, it makes the light fold back in on itself, creating a piece of dense matter. Right? This is why the 3D looks like it's fixed position of reality and we can't walk through walls, because the Higgs boson governs the law that separates things. Right? So it's like a pound of feathers and the 1 pound brick drop from 30,000 feet. Which one gonna hit the ground first? The only way that the brick hit the ground first is if the feathers are not contained. If the feathers are contained, like in a pillowcase, they'll hit at the same time because the weight is the same. The only thing the feathers being in a larger container might experience more drag, which would give us the illusion that they fell at a different rate. But if you can compact the same amount of density and weight of feathers into the same space as a brick, they gonna both hit like a brick. Right. So that's the war of the butterfly. Butterfly fighting a dragon, and you need a trillion butterflies to kill it. Right. But he probably, they're not telling how many butterflies you're gonna lose in the fight from the dragon. Right. So they use the Orgon accumulator to extract the ether and put it in a usable form, and they call it Orgon. And that is the same, that is solidified ether. Dr. Delbert Blair talks about what's called ore energy, which is primordial base energy. When you're looking at the pyramids, Rich, most of that stuff are metaphysical calculations of creation in some part of the creation or the other. Right. And you use the same methodology to reorganize the society based on the balancing of those equations. They real simple, but they complex. It's complex because we don't know what they mean, but it's simple in the message that they trying to relay. Where does this thing slide?
You good, Rod?
Yeah, my phone keeps sliding and trying to I got it. I think I got it this time. It keeps sliding across this thing I got it propped up on.
Serious, please be quiet. All right, so Rod, so let me ask you this now. All right. When you mention the ether and you was comparing it to water, I thought about something you know, that they when they talk about the cosmos, and the best representation they have of the cosmos is, let me show this. It looks like they call it filaments. And they say filaments in space are the largest known structures in the universe and are made up of dark matter and galaxies that connect groups of galaxies. Now I've always said, I said this to I think it might have been Dr. BSN. I said, yo, I think the universe is a big afro. It reminds me of a huge afro. So I want to show you.
You see those pictures of the filament?
I want to show you Blue Pill. Let's just use Blue Pill as an example. His afro, or Mama Pill, her afro, right? Now they say here is, you know, divine. They call it non-ether here. Now, when we talk about the afro and it growing endlessly, they say the universe is infinite. Something that no matter how much we cut it, it grows back. For the most part, is here. So I want to talk to me about the similarities, because you use water as an example to describe the ethers. How much of an example can we use here when we're describing the ether or the structure that makes up the cosmos? Is here also one of the best physical representations of what we call etheric energy, Rod Hayes?
Right. That's because the sacred 369. Remember, you brought up Tesla earlier.
Yeah.
You say when you understand the power of the 3, 6, and the 9, then you understand the fabric of the universe. Right. So when you look at it, all it is different directions of curls. Right. The 3, the 6, the 9.
That's deep. Just different direction of curls. That's deep.
Right. Deep. But this is all taken from, okay, the Afro hairstyle is a representation of the uterus. Right. The energy field around the uterus represents the hair, and the uterus itself is represented by the face. It's a homage to the Great Mother. So you had tribes both over in the Americas, the old Mississippians especially, they had Afro chiefs that wore them big old afros so that they could be seen by the same way as the other tribes wore the war bonnet. When Tukey came down the street with his afro picked out, everybody knew from 4 blocks away that here come Tukey. You can't miss him. All you got to do is look for the muscles in the afro, and you know it's him and his crew. Right. So the hair itself is showing you the expressions of the 3, 6, 9 by the curl. 9 ether being ether to the 9th power of 9. which a lot of people said Malachi was insane until the scientists got a hold of the formula and applied it in a repeatable fashion, and then he wasn't so crazy. Now he had to go. So when you look at the hair follicles, also mimic the brain cells. When you looked at that the fabric of the universe is showing you the same fabric of the layout of the neurons in the brain. It's the same way that the hairs is laid out in the afro, right? And that's to facilitate a more entropy-free exchange of energy. It's the entropy that causes the decay, that causes the spiritual information to be lost in translation to the recipient of the information, right? And by tending properly to your hair, and no matter which form you use it in, if you hold it sacred, you will be able to use it as the sympathetic link to tune in to etheric fields. And the etheric field is going to always be based on your personal vibrational frequency, which will play out in your dream state. Because where you vibrate at in the physical, and when you bring that together with the mental paradigm of who you are, it'll give you a projection to understand spiritual things in the dream state. Right? So all of those things are interconnected. Just like the ether is everywhere. It connects all things, so all things are connected.
Right. You know, and Rod, ether, one of the things that moving forward with this channel, I want to continue to stress or continue to highlight is the fact that empty space is not empty. What we call empty space, and we all see empty space in our homes, and you know, when we go outside, you know, we see plenty of empty space, and you know, it's filled with ether. I want to ask you this, Rod. Let me ask you this. Let me see, because I could go in so many directions. All right, so they say the universe is like 90-something% empty space. They say our bodies is like 90-something% quote unquote empty space. Now, our homes, you know, this is like where we live. This is like our sanctuary. This is our castle. This is where we come to escape from the, you know, the stresses of the world. I think it's a very spiritual environment for all of us. Should our homes as well, Rod, because when goes into feng shui, should our homes as well represent 90-something% empty space in order for us to tap into this etheric energy? Because sometimes we may be cluttered and we have too much shit in our homes, and we can't think straight. This is why some people don't like a lot of shit in their home, because this is like a direct reflection of not only the universe, but our bodies, when it's 97% empty space and just a chair, a desk, a table, or this or that. Is this why it's supposed to be like that in the science of feng shui?
That's applicable to certain people. But you've seen people with a cluttered house with OCD, where every single thing in their house got a designated spot and it got a lot of stuff in there.
Good point. Good point.
Spiritually, what's going on with those people is they spiritually in tune, and they seeing everything they have spiritually, and they building the physical representation in their environment. Right. And they're using the orderness, you know, because order is the first thing after the Big Bang, because chaos came and the order had to put everything in a designated place.
Right.
Right. So even amidst what looked like chaos to everybody else, these people have the knack to be well organized in their chaos. Even if a lot of them be old Christian ladies. The irony of that is, if they practice chaos magic, they would be the coldest.
Wow.
They're natural chaos magicians, taking chaos and creating order out of chaos. They problem solvers too.
Wow. That's deep. So let me ask you this. Earlier, you talked about you used the word intentions, right? And in terms of let's think about water, and we see when we throw a rock in the pond of water, the rock generates waves within the water that goes out. What our intention when we're talking about the ether in this field that permeates the entire universe is our intention, like that rock. When we send out an intention, is our intention that rock that hits the etheric waters and sends out a wave that will eventually come back to us, depending on how hard our intention, i.e., the rock, is that we sent out. Right.
Yeah. So the good comparative analysis is the rock dropped in the bucket.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the intention is more focused in the bucket, which is represented by the water, it returns back to the center from which the rock pierced the water faster.
Right.
But if you drop it in the ocean, it's still gonna come back, but who knows when? Right? That's a unrefined intentions. That means that you want it, you think you deserve it, but you don't know how to get it, so you don't think you're gonna ever get it. So that makes it take longer to come back. Oh, that's why they say don't put yourself in a box. Stand in the circle, stand on pi 3.14, the center of the circle. Because everything that you put out from the center has to return back to the center in due time. Right. In the manner, the tighter your intention field is, the faster it can return. Remember, we was talking about Brother Panic and those platonic solids that he was using for manifestation.
Polite. No, Brother Polite.
Brother Polite, yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that is, when you use those, you are going in between intentions of similar ideas. And then you infusing it with your willpower, which makes your barrel smaller for your ripples to return faster. So this is why he was using that. That's an old kinetic science that's most people don't know how to properly activate.
Very interesting. All right, Rod. So one of the things you mentioned, Brother Panic, and I don't want to misquote Brother Panic. Rest in power to Brother Panic. Shout out to Khadijah. I talked to his wife the other day. I'm actually going to be doing some family with her in February. She's going to be doing a presentation on the channel. So shout out to Khadijah and rest in power to the spirit, the soul of Brother Panic. But I don't want to misquote him. But he said something along the lines of, now when we talk about ether, when you see the pentagram, I hope I'm saying it right. The pentagram, they said the top part represents the ether. I believe Panic said when you want to manifest something, this is why certain people wear the pentagram upside down, because that represents bringing the ether down to this realm. Talk to me about why some people may wear a upside down, or when they do rituals, they may have an upside down pentagram versus some people have a pointing up pentagram. Rob, what might be the difference in manifesting something?
Well, it's the power, the energy frequency you're using for manifestation, right? So first of all, you gotta know what the pentagrams is. The 5-pointed star is the pentagram. And it's the representation of the divine feminine as Venus energy. The upside down pentagram is the masculine takeover of the feminine by decapitating the woman. So you gave her a phallus and took her head. So you're using the reverse of her system against her, or the feminine nature. But people think when you say feminine and divine feminine that you're talking about gender. It's about frequency.
What divine feminine?
Right. So the women just have the more of the tools to activate the feminine to a higher degree of expression than the male, who have the anatomy to manifest the masculine to the highest potential of male. Right. So that's the difference in the two. So when you're using the energy, ascending energy and descending energy, fraternal twins, Gemini field, between two pillars, When you're using the energy going up, that's the upward facing triangle. When you use it drawing down the energy, that's the downward facing triangle. Right. So what you're trying to do is meet in the middle, and that gives you the 6-point star. But when you see it in the 3-dimensional expression, you have what's called the Merkaba, 2 pyramids interlocked.
Right. I was going to ask you.
And then when you spin the Merkaba, you start to produce the crown of life. The crown of life is how the Merkaba look when it's fully spinning. It's moving too fast for you to see it with the naked eye, so it looked like a ball with a whole bunch of sides. This is how the elders explain it in the Kemetic philosophies when they're showing us the difference in the fields of the energy. This is why modern religion took out things like the Jed, which means that you need a pillar or a polarizing force. Just like you need a catalyzing force, you need a polarizing force. A polarizing force, if you can control the polarizing force, you can control both sides of the pole. Right? And this is, back again, standing on 3.14, standing on pi in the center of the circle. But first, you have to learn to govern your micro circle before you can start dabbling in your macro circle. First, you have to get yourself under control before you try to control others. And the way that you control yourself will determine how you control others. If you're hard on yourself, you're going to be hard on other people. And they don't understand the people that's hard on them, it's hard on them because they're hard on themselves. But it really is not being hard on you. What it really is being forcing you to stand on your determination and exercise your willpower by showing you what it looked like when somebody stand on their principles and exercise their willpower. And we tend to become so soft in this modern era that it becomes offensive for somebody to become direct, standing on their principles and exercising their willpower. We get offended because we're not doing it. Right? Everybody want to be like Mike, but don't nobody want to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning shooting free throws.
I'm telling you, man.
And everybody that wanted to be like Mike that made it to that level, Kobe Bryant or LeBron or James, you got to look at the practice that got them to the level.
Right.
Because it's the practice that determines the outcome when it comes time to get in that ring. When the rubber meet the road and it's time for the fight, what did you train yourself for?
Right.
Right. That's all using that force, by the way.
That force, right.
And the better trained you is, the more adept you is at using the force. Right. And then it comes out expressed as muscle memory. Right, or rote memory, but it comes out as some kind of memory recall mechanism.
Right.
You put the work in, you're going to get the results out, though they might not be as fast as you would like them to be. They coming. But most people don't have the drive to put the work in, so they never train themselves to use their willpower to bring about their best life.
Rod, and hold on, where's this at? Give me a second, y'all. In Plato's, and I should be showing this on the screen, but let me just read this. In Plato's Timaeus, I hope I'm saying that right. Timaeus. So in Plato's Timaeus, he says, speaking on the topic of air, he said, there is the most translucent kind, which is called by the name ether. I want to ask you, with him saying that, Rod, I want to ask you. Now, I've heard Blair, you mentioned Dr. Blair earlier. I've heard you and many others say that the air they breathed in antiquity when the giants roamed the land is not the air that we breathe now. Did they breathe a more direct form of ether? And what we get now is a bootleg version, but they was getting that, you know how you get cocaine and that shit is pure, and then some niggas step on it? Are we getting the stepped on cocaine? Are we breathing the stepped on cocaine? But they had the raw and uncut cocaine, i.e. ether, back in antiquity, and this is why they were giants, Rod. Is this what Plato's referring to?
The size was based on the 12-strand DNA, and the oxygen transfer capability. Now, oxygen is critical. Because remember, they say so biblically, this is how they tell it. They say that the waters of the sky was separated from the waters of the earth, right? And never knowing it's still water between the upper atmosphere and the earth, but it's not. It's a different part of the atmosphere. The atmosphere is in layers, right? But the layer that we was breathing during the Atlantean era before the war that caused nuclear contamination was the ozone oxygen, double oxygen molecules that reduce the amount of entropy produced in the process of breathing, which is the transfer of spirit inner and outer in order to recycle the energy field. Now, if you look at the air that we breathe in, we have all these other chemicals and gases in the air that's been put in there. That's radioactive particles. Then you have some that's that activate on organs and do different stuff to the organs. All these is chemicals that's in the air. People be worrying about eating clean food, but ain't nobody worried about breathing clean air. And the air quality is directly related to the size of the animal that dwelled on the planet. The dinosaurs couldn't live in this oxygenated environment unless they downsized their massive bulk, because the oxygen would not be sufficient to facilitate them in their survival. They would slowly suffocate.
Right.
We already got fish scales, but they just call it ashy skin.
No, he talking about fish scale is that pure cocaine. So he making a reference. He making a reference to that pure cocaine.
That Peruvian flake.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, y'all some funny dudes in the chat. Very, very interesting conversation. Rod, so what I want to ask you about now is they say, all right, let me ask you this, Rod. All right, so a lot of things got demonized. Some of the most spiritual things that can help us got demonized. So
like Baphomet,
all that type of stuff. Everything that pretty much could benefit, they turn evil or to the devil or unlucky, like the number 13, things like that. So they say, researching on the internet, they say that the middle finger represents the ether. Now the middle finger has been demonized, right? You put up the middle finger, if you're spiritual and you go like this, you feel like a derelict. You feel horrible. You feel like a degenerate.
This is ether.
So why on the internet they say the middle finger is ether then?
That's air. It's earth, fire, air, water, ether. Some people may use it to represent the ether, right? Because remember, what happened to the fire when it get done burning? Where did it go?
Yeah.
It went back to the ether.
Yeah.
Right. And he left all of the carbon, which is the physical byproduct of going back to the ether. It's called ashes. Right. Remember when earlier when I was talking about the Orgon accumulator? That's the opaque ether that he was talking about when you say that it's the purest form of air.
Right.
Before nuclear war, see, people only think of the nuclear fallout, the radioactive aftermath of a war. What they don't think about is the chemical changes to all of the things that the radioactivity affected. Right. And the only time they pay that attention is when they go to Chernobyl, where they had the most devastating nuclear meltdowns in recent memory. And now they seeing 6-legged cats and frogs with 18 legs, stuff like that. Now they notice that the radiation does more than just, because you gotta remember, only two things causes a mutation. right? Gradual change over a prolonged period of time, or ultraviolet light bombardment of radioactive particles from the sun.
Mm.
When it's time to evolve, the earth and the sun got to say, humans, level up so that the fish can level up, so that the seals can level up, all the way around the whole animal kingdom. We supposed to be able to read nature, understand how we are naturally, and move in harmony with everything around us.
Mm-hmm.
But as part of the byproduct of the entropy, which is the deterioration, you have what's called a negative aspect. Now we going back to Hermetic principle, the law of opposites again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's telling you there's somebody good-hearted that's controlling the ether, and there's somebody dark-hearted controlling the ether, wicked at the heart.
Mm-hmm.
And they in a struggle, an eternal struggle, right, to establish the dominance of which one going to be in existence after the struggle. That's the story of Set and Osiris, the struggle of the two brothers, two opposing forces with two different ideologies,
Mm-hmm.
coming from the same parental source,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the mediator between the two ended up being Isis, which was the sister. And the remedy was for Heru to rise up to the throne, overthrow Set, entropy, extreme chaos, and reestablish the great father, Osiris, Usir, the one who cares for and maintains order among the family. Mm-hmm. Right? So they telling us metaphysics, quantum physics, then they telling us housekeeping, order and structure of the household. All of that is being told in the same paradigm. Right? And they use the reference of the housemaking in order to explain the physics, because there's more housemakers than it is physics professors. So you got to be able to communicate with both. You tell the same story, and then when you explain it to the person that's reading the story, how to look at it from their field of study, it changes the paradigm and how they perceive their spiritual growth.
Right. All right, so Rod, so let's go in this direction. So we talked about earlier about empty space, and I told you how I want to stress to my community that empty space is really not empty. So another thing that I thought about when I think about so-called empty space is silence, the silence in songs. You know, this is something that gets neglected, like empty space in between objects in your house. So the silence within a song is something that gets neglected. Bobby Hemmett talked about a lot about the importance of the silence and how that actually is what made music special. So talk to me about the silence in songs and that connection to the ether, Rod. Because when we think about songs, we think about the sounds. We always talk about the sounds, but there's also a sound that we don't hear in our ears, and that's the silence in between the sounds. So talk to me about the silence in between the sounds.
You
Rod.
ever seen that movie Eddie and the Cruisers?
No, I haven't. No.
They writing a song.
Yeah.
And Eddie is trying to explain what you just said to somebody. Right? And they got a guy that writes songs with him called the Song Man. So the Song Man was trying to give Eddie and the Cruisers a new song. And Eddie was trying to explain the only way the song would work, we need this element in it. And he said, what is this? It's called a haiku.
Yeah.
A strategic silence in the song that makes the rest of the song more compelling to draw you in.
What I gotta watch? What movie is this?
Eddie and the Cruisers.
Right, I gotta, because I'm a musician, I'm a producer, so I gotta watch this.
Oh man, if you ain't seen Eddie and the Cruisers, hey, but I'm gonna tell you this: once you see it, your whole view on the Tupac situation gonna be like, oh, what the?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's let it go. All right.
Yeah, so and Eddie and the Cruisers is a movie John Cafferty, a country singer, did the soundtrack to. And a couple of my favorite songs on there is On the Dark Side, which we was just talking about the Force. That he talking about a lady, right? And he said from out of the shadow she walked like a dream. But you will never really know just what I mean. Right? She coming from the dark side. This is what he explained, and she stole his heart. So just the telling of the story by song that makes the movie so compelling when you understand the story behind the Cruisers. That the movie was actually based off Jim Morrison and the Doors. And then they used a writer named Arthur Rimbaud as the conspiracy effect to the movie. Right. And I think it's Eddie. I think it's 2 parts. It might be 3, but I know it's 2 parts. It's really good. And if you like music, you're going to love that movie. Like I could put it in and leave it in for 7 days without taking it off repeat.
Damn, like that? Shit. That's yeah, I'm gonna watch that. I'm gonna watch that real soon. So let me
talk to you about that silence. That strategic silence is often taught about in poetry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, for instance, if you listen to Gwendolyn Brooks doing stand-up, the last poets, Nikki Giovanni, they all use that strategic silence. Even Maya Angelou. When they doing what they call it, they reading their poetry, spoken word, you will see it. And then a lot of times in old poems you read before, you didn't know what the symbol mean for the haiku, which is the strategic silence. Then you go back and read those poems again and they have a whole different effect. Because now you understand the strategic silence. Right. That's like a little, trying to think of a good song that uses the strategic silence. But I can't think of one off the top of my head that it just stick out where everybody that heard the song would know what I'm talking about. Most of them are friend songs, folk music and stuff like that.
Right. Wow. Yeah, that's that strategic silence, because even with you talking, like let's say there could be 2 speakers, Rod. This is a great example. And this is an example of the importance of that silence, or what some people may call empty space, or some people may call ether energy or whatever. 2 people talking, you could say that strategic silence is talked about in poetry, or you could say that strategic silence is talked about in poetry. And the person who used that silence and said in poetry, yo, it hit my heart. Rod, that shit hit my heart way harder than a person that just said it robotically. So when you said the poetry you use strategic silences in between words and what you want to stress. So that made me think about that. That's how important that silence is. You could impact a person's part. Like imagine a dude talking to his girl and saying he love her, and he says it with silence in between certain words. Like that shit is real important, Rob. We sleep on that, man.
Well, the first person that did something different with that strategic silence in music was Marvin Gaye, on the album with What's Happening, Brother, and I forget it's some of his biggest songs. But if you pay attention in some of his strategic silence, you'll hear people chattering in the background. Right? Because that's the way that he brought your attention to the strategic silence before the next part of the song activate. Because most people don't pay attention to the strategic silence. So you needed the background of day-to-day silence, which is some kind of noise that's not relevant to nothing, playing in the echoes of the empty space, and then the song come back on and give more impact to the next phase of the song, because now your empty space, it's filled with something, a form of silence that you truly understand, which is really noise.
Yeah, and just speaking of noise, when I was talking to you on the phone, Rod, and I said, Rod, what's the best word in the English language that you could use to describe the ethers? And he was like, loud sound. And I didn't think he was gonna say that. I think he was gonna say some scientific shit or whatever. He was like loud sound. I was like, wow, that's powerful that you would say that, bro. Loud sound. That's the best word, the most efficient word you would use in the English language to describe this force. Now, this is the greatest force in existence. And you said sound, my brother.
Look, they call it the Big Bang, but how did you know if it's a bang if there's no sound?
Ooh, there you go. There you go.
No, just think about it. How do they know that a Big Bang ever take place? Boom. Two main reasons. One is it's still echoing. Ooh. It's echoing on a frequency, what they call a modulated frequency at a chosen interval. And the other way that they know is through something called galactic expansion, which is red shift, blue shift. One is collapsing and the other is expanding. That's what they mean in science. And then in the old Hopi culture, they call it red Kachina, blue Kachina. And everybody think that this is a star when it's telling you actually a functioning creation more so than it is telling you about a red star and a blue star. It just so happened that the analogy of the red star and blue star match so well that they able to explain it to you using two stars as telling you that they are a force you can't see. Right. You can see the blue star, you can see the red star. It's also talking about the tribes, the father house and the mother house, the blue house and the red house, trying to get to the black and gold house, which is Big Mama house. Mm-hmm. Red Kachina is the one coming out of the red house and the mama's child, and then the blue Kachina is the one coming out of the father's house, the father's child. Mm-hmm. Right? And in every large family, it's a child ascribed to each parent. Mm-hmm. Right? Normally, the boys is ascribed to the fathers and the girls is ascribed to the mother. Mm-hmm. And then you have what's called daddy's girls, where the daughter is ascribed to the father to raise to be a good woman. And then you got mama's boys, which is boys assigned to the mother in order to be taught how to be good men. Mm-hmm. Without being fruity. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. And then you have what's called the royal house, purple, right? The purple reign, REIGN, meaning rulership, comes from the royal arc degree, meaning the matching of the perfect one from the red house, the perfect one from the blue house. Mm-hmm. And that's how you put together the two keys to open up Big Mama house, which is the bank. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Once everything is settled, then it all comes full circle. And so you use the same sciences of creation in order to create, and what we call it manifest now. Right. We don't want to say we creators no more. We want to say we manifestors now. Right. Manifester might work better because it's bringing something into existence out of something that exists, but creation is bringing it out of nothing. Mm. But even in nothing, thought exists. Mm-hmm. Because the thought is the catalyst. It's the cause of it all. It's as a man thinketh. Mm. Right? What do that mean? That means let this mind be in you, which was in Christos Isos. Mm. Or Christ Isis, the great mother. If you can think like the great mother, right brain, full capacity, and you can think like the divine father, and you are a divine son, you become the son of the son. Mm-hmm. Right? This is symbolically represented as before the sun come over the horizon, first comes Mama, Venus, mm-hmm. Right? The pentagram, the divine mm-hmm. feminine. Mm-hmm. On her heels comes Mercury, the messenger of the gods, the one who comes to deliver God's message. Mm. And after he get done delivering his message, the crack of dawn spread her legs, and out pops Papa, that big old sun. Mm. that was buried in her underworld.
I like how you break that down, bro. That was crazy. Wow. That was crazy.
But it's also a map. It's a blueprint for the royal families of the earth. It goes back to the book of Daniel, which means the judgment of El. The elder's judgment is rendered in the book of Daniel by giving you a struggle program. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, they said they stuck them in the furnace, and the furnace was turned all the way up, and they weren't even scorched. They was able to withstand the fire. The symbolic nature or meaning of that was the furnace was the condition, and the fire was the surroundings. Harsh environment is the way you refine character, but they use in metallurgy to tell you that their character was being tested and that they were being put to the fire in order to determine who and what they was. And they found out when they came out, what? These are the protected ones from somebody, right? And now Nebuchadnezzar loses his mind and loses his kingdom. But what happened? When Daniel decided to finally read the writing on the wall, Nebuchadnezzar slapped out of the slumber, realized he's in the jungle among the beasts. Hey, I don't supposed to be here. Symbolic of waking your brother up from the slumber by reading the writing on the wall. In ancient Kemet, we call it hieroglyphics. In New York, we call it graffiti. And if you know the land, you can read the graffiti and you can know what tribe is operating under the modern banner of gang. Them tribes.
Wow.
Right? There's no such thing as a gang. A gang is a tribe. It's even in the definition and etymology of the word gang. They tell you it's a tribe or family unit or family group that don't go along with the status quo. Therefore, they don't fit into the system. Right? And then now the gang realized that the tribe, they reconstitute. We was at war. We got murdered, slaughtered. But we ain't died. We multiplied. We baby kids up in here. Who is baby? That's Big Mama. You don't believe me? Go to New Orleans and ask them where baby stay. They're going to be like, which baby? You mean Baby Johnson? Or you talking about Baby Milton over there? That's somebody Big Mama.
Damn.
And Big Mama kids don't never die. We always multiply because we have to answer the oppression with producing children that's offspring born at inception to solve certain social issues in the general public. If you look at the way that we moved in the 50s and 60s, it's not how we moved in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Because we were so heavily saturated with infiltrators, we didn't know what the hell was going on in the 50s and 60s. We know that it was a civil rights bill passed in the 60s, and we thinking that it's for some black people, and it's say indigenous civil rights right on the bill, or Indian civil rights. But it's for us. But we supposed to be from Africa. Right? And then when Martin started to tell it, they got to silence him. Malcolm tried to tell it, so, you know, he had to go draw the infiltrators out. If they in here like you say they in here, make them come out and show themselves. If I go this way, they're going to come out and kill me. Prove it. Right? Chickens coming home to roost. Detroit Red Rooster.
Right.
Running a red herring to get the wicked ones away from the babies. If he right, they got to destroy it all and start all over and get rid of the infiltrators. At least isolate them and control them.
Right.
So they destroyed it. Wharfdeen Muhammad, Farrakhan rebuilt it.
Rod, you talked about
cultural phenomenon.
Rod, you talked about manifestation about 5 minutes ago. We started going in on manifestation. Before I ask you this, because I got a question I want to ask you, or something I want to say that I read in a book and I want to get your opinion on. But before I bring that up, I want to ask you, where did the story, we talk about these stories that are like they have a deeper meaning to them. They're like allegories. We have the Bible. They describe a internal process that's happening inside of us. But the story form allows us to be more connected to it. So they tell us in story form. Where did, and I'm gonna be doing more things in story form. I gotta call you and tell you about it. I talked to Red and Blue Pill about it. That's a conversation I gotta have with you on the phone. But where did the story, Rod, of this genie that grants us 3 wishes? There's a deeper meaning to this genie. We're talking about manifestation. This carpet, Aladdin, this carpet, this genie granting us wishes. That seemed like a hell of a deal. We could get whatever the fuck we want from this genie on this carpet. Where does this come from? What's the deeper meaning behind this story before I go into what I read in this book, Rod?
So in the earth traditions of the tribes of the earth, we have the people that have namesakes, right? That's all of these people that's naming their children after Ra. They naming their children Osiris. They naming their children all these deity names. Those children have the genetic capability after being programmed by the parent with that name to download the same frequency of leadership qualities that those people displayed. These stories is designed in order to tell you the type of power if you carry a certain name. In this case, we're talking about the genie, which is the jinn in Islam, which the church wanted to turn into the devils of Islam when they was the totem protectors of those tribes, so that the Catholic Church don't have to worry about them calling on their God to assist them when they can use our God to run away from their God, right? So they polarizing. All of these stories is to make you not use your ancestral power source by villainizing them. But in antiquity, they had a different meaning. If you go to the story of Abraham chased down, no, it wasn't Abraham. It was one of Jacob's children had stole the family Tehillim, which was a altar relic that was the family symbol of who the hereditary heir was to the parent. And they tracked them down to recover it. And they talk about it in the Bible. Well, because the person who have the genetics and the relic can call ancestral energies that can give them information on where hidden treasures are, where what type of gambling bets to make in the future, stuff like that brings fortune in the physical realm. So they use those ancestral totems and those ancestral spirit animals, and they tell the story to let you know that once you go back to your own power, that you able to utilize these forces. Then you can't overuse them is where the limit of 3 wishes come from. That's telling you be careful for what you wish for, because you don't want to wish for something and then in 5 years you're going to regret you wish for it. So in making the 3 wishes, you got to always wish for things that's going to be beneficial eternally in that aspect. And the ancestral force you crawl on is represented by the family totem item or relic. In some cases, it was a brass teapot. The teapot becomes synonymous with the air coming from the region. So now you're not looking for a teapot. When you come from the Americas, you're looking for a honeypot because the bees is more relevant. Right. But the story is being the same. You got 3 chances to get it right, or you have to move on to the next thing. Mm-hmm. You can only lose 1 out of the 3. If you lose 2 out of 3, you done, because there's no chance you're going to recover on the 3rd one. You still lost your 2. Mm-hmm. So when you making your wish, the story is infused with the contemplation of, if I was going to wish for 3 things in my life, what 3 things would they wish for? Right? And the only thing I wish for is my mama, my pops, and my children. And they always with me, because that being my 3 wishes, we etherically tied forever now.
Oh, indeed, Rod. And I asked you that question about manifestation. There's actually 2 other questions I want to ask you in regards to that. What did you say earlier, Rod, about, you said something about strings and knots can produce matter. What was you talking about again? Just real quick. What was you?
The Higgs boson. We were talking about the Higgs boson being, using the string theory as the reference for people to understand how you get density from the Higgs boson. And the way that I explain it is that the Higgs boson is still an electron, but the light is denser because it's tied in a knot.
Okay, so Rob, with that being said, the light being tied in a knot and then producing matter. When I watch the movie Avatar and you see these advanced beings with the here and locks. Now, if here is an example of etheric filament energy and we put it into locks, does that cause us to be greater manifestors in this realm? We have this etheric energy that's we call it non-ether here, and it's tied where we're tying it in knots. Does that have an effect on our manifestation abilities at all, Rod?
Okay, so first of all, we call them.
Let me preface this, Rod, because there's a group of people. My channel got suspended. Rod was talking about this group of people, and y'all know who I'm talking about, the small hats, and they wish they had locks. They have this little thing on the side. They would, but there's only one group of people that could lock their hair. So I'm trying to figure out the importance of locking your hair and why groups will want to imitate that, and they know they can't lock their hair, Rod. So talk to me, Rod.
Well, you got pale faces that can lock their hair.
Not like, you know what I'm talking about. Bob Marley lock.
But
you know what I'm talking
about. Here's the thing. Let's go back to Medusa.
Yes, please.
Remember they said that her hair moved on her head like snakes.
Yes, sir. Yes.
So when they drew her in the caricature, in the cartoon, they gave her snakes for hair instead of the sacred lock.
Indeed.
Right? And from those locks, those snakes would spit electrical sparks. This is telling you the story of being fully realized into who you are. Every part of your body responds to the driver when it's given a function. The dreadlocks of Medusa, as her defense, was capable of accumulating by friction massive amounts of static electricity, and because she could psychically control the movement of her hair, she could direct where each one of the locks slung the static electrical current. Right? And static electricity is still electricity. So they tell it to us in that story. They went from us calling them sacred locks or 9 ether locks to them seeing us with them, calling them the dreaded locks. Because when you seen them Mau, you know who the Mau is?
Yeah.
When you seen the Mau, they was led by a general that had the locks. In Jamaica, when they was harassing the natives that would celebrate in their parks, the only thing that they hated is that when they called for them ones with the locks, so they started saying the dreaded locks. So then they became known as dreadlocks.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. Yeah.
Right. And then when they embraced it, right, the ones from up in the mountains of Jamaica embraced the term. They didn't call them dreadlocks no more. They called them the natty dread. Right, which became infused into the culture to tell you the capable spiritual influence that you can download, because your hair is like antenna. And by being in tune with yourself, in tune with nature, Your antennas, the longer they are, the more data that they can receive and send to your brain. And all of our hair covers our scalp, which covers our skull, which covers what, Rich?
Brain.
Right. So now all this information is going straight to your head. And you remember what the song say? Don't let it go to your head, no.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Right. Because they want to keep us ignorant. But when you go back, let's say, for instance, the at different times, by the way you grew your hair, you understood stuff differently, and you never equated it to your hair change until so many years later. In retrospect, you was able to identify the change in your understanding by the hairstyle you wore at the time.
Wee, there you go. Yeah.
Man, yeah, back when I rocked the Gumby, right? That's when I bumped into the guy up on 5th and 110th Street, and he gave me the science for the day, and I ain't been the same since. I went from the Gumby, I went to the low fade, to the no fade, back to the afro, to the natty light. You able to go through your growth by how you attended to your hair, even the women.
Damn, yeah.
You got women like she right now, I can't be who I am. Let me dye my hair. Now she can now this is the way the girl look at it. Now I can let that bitch sit over there and simmer in her shit while I recover over here as this new person.
Right.
That's the chameleon clan. Those are cosmetic legacy of the chameleon clan, who understand to change the appearance of the person is to change the way the person see themselves in the world. And what you change it to determines which manner of character they will perform as, using the ego that they was given.
Y'all heard that? Did y'all hear that? Wow. Did y'all
Please don't
hear
ask
that?
me to repeat it. It
Oh,
sounds like a tongue twister.
Yeah, that was channeled straight through Rod. Rod is, Rod on his radio shit,
Yeah, but that's the science of the chameleon clan.
Yeah.
That's why they got the term chameleon anyway. That's their totem animal.
Right.
And they the ones who always changing their style up very frequently as they become aware of new information.
Right. Yeah. Wow. All right. So Rod, so I was reading the book, right? So, and we about to wind it down. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We got 3,000 people tuned in tonight. Shout out to Billy Carson and Terrence Howard was live tonight at 8. I didn't get a chance to see it because I was, getting ready for the show, but I like clicked on it and I heard Terrence mention about the Big Bang, and he was talking about certain things we was talking about tonight. And I'm like, damn, man. He mentioned ether because he mentioned Tesla or something like that. And I'm like, damn, man, we so connected and we don't know it, that we will literally do similar shows the same night, and I have no idea that. Yeah, what you said, Rod?
Spirit teams.
Man.
This is why you go to the Rucker. You ain't got nobody with you, but you got next on the court. You got your picker who you want to play with you now.
That's a good example. That was a good example.
Hey, ain't nobody passing up the next, but you only gonna pick the one gonna keep you on the court the longest.
Right. Wow. Wow.
That's also a tribal leadership training program. Ball games or open game sports. You pick your team, I pick my team. From out of the ones that's here, that was a training program.
We talked
then
about
they started turning it into a money-making scheme and turned it into professional sports. None of those things was originally professional sports. They was all stuff that we did tribally to keep certain lessons being practiced in the community. That's a leadership lesson. Because you ain't gonna pick nobody on your team that's not gonna keep you on court. They got to be able to ball, but guess who else got to be able to ball to even get next?
Wow. we Rod, the show that I just did with you, B-Dale and RFG, we talked about sports and spirituality, and I was telling you about the whole point guard and all that. So it's interesting that you say that. Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing, man. That is amazing. what I want to talk to you about, Rod, is in terms of the ether. The book talks about divine matrix, talks about, and I heard Bruce Lipton talk about this also, about how human emotions influence the DNA, could change the shape of the DNA. Bruce Lipton was one of the pioneers. It's called epigenetics, epigenetic programming.
Yeah.
Where you're because they say the environment influences the genetics, the DNA, but the thing that the environment that influences it is your perception. And the thing that influences from your perception is your emotional reaction. Your emotional reaction it goes back to your human emotion, right? So your human emotion influences your DNA. They did a test where your DNA influences the photon, influences photons. Photons is particles of light that matter is made of. So this matter is made of photons, particles of light. So your emotions influences the DNA that influences the matter. Now, in terms of ether's all in this thing. So talk to me about, they say that Greg Braden says that the language that this field, that many names, ether, quantum field, whatever you
same language as computers.
Yeah, so check this out. They say computers is ones and zeros.
Binary code.
Binary code. But the ether understands the language of the emotions or the language of the heart. So the
frequency.
Frequency. So talk to me, because we're talking about manifestation and we don't understand how important emotions is in this equation to manifest or bringing certain things into this reality. And it seems to be everything, Rod. Talk to me.
How many times have you heard me tell you your emotions is your navigation system to where you're going in your life?
A lot. A whole lot.
And this is why. All that information you went on with Greg Braden, with the other guy, what's his name? Bruce Lipton.
Bruce Lipton, yeah.
Right. Now you got another guy named Thomas Campbell who came out with a book called My Big Toe, which means Theory of Everything.
I never read that. Okay.
Yeah. Oh man, that's a cold piece of work right there. It's gonna have you smiling through the whole book if you like to read. But anyway, the sciences coming in from 3 different prime sources. Remember, Greg Braden started off on a journey in the East to determine if any of that stuff that they teach in the Far East was real, using scientific methods to either prove or disprove it. He ended up proving so much of it, he got converted. Right? Then you got Bruce Lipton. He's studying epigenetics and how do the cells get information to the individual. How do you know what information to act on at a biochemical level from the cells? Well, the cells is getting the information projected from the outside through what's called the membrane. Membrane mean microbrain or little brain. Mean meaning a small piece of something, and it's the smallest part of the brain. Membrane. Then you have what's called your neurobrain. But you still got 2 other brains that you have to deal with. And one is your heart brain, and the other one is your bottomless pit brain, which is your intestinal tract. Right? It's a bottomless pit because everything that go through it don't come back up unless it's bad news. Right? So they telling you the story, all of these systems working together. Okay, now, if you step back and take your emotions out of it and say, how do God look at this invention and what was he making? Right? He made a Earth navigation rover that would be controlled from externally by remote radio broadcasts. And he have to be tuned in to a certain dial on his genetics, which comes in through his crystalline DNA, which is made up of the amino acids, which is microcrystals. So now they're using crystals to transfer the information from the membrane, and they're using the mitochondrial to charge it all up. right? Which takes us back to the matrix. Because the part of the mitochondrial where the energy is produced is called the matrix.
Right.
But what do the word matrix mean? The word matrix means divine mother or great mother. So when we talking about being in the divine mother, the great mother, we talking about being in her dark matter, her seminal fluids, her amniotic fluid for us to gestate in while we being created in creation during the creation period.
Right.
So then you wonder, why is it that the ether permeates through me, right, and is all around me? Because you in mama amniotic sac, surviving off of her etheric fluid. She's feeding you through her mitochondria, charging up each one of your cells to tell your body to do what's in your DNA program. The crystals from the DNA is projecting back out to the membrane, which collectively come together and form a whole field called an auric field. And from the auric field, all of the information downloaded through the matrix into the DNA crystals projects to something called the neural network. And that's why earlier I wanted to point out that when you showed that picture, those were brain cells, just same as they is afro curls. Right? Because now we're talking about the mycelium network of the human body. Being able to draw information from all parts of the body at one time. But if you don't use your right brain, it doesn't work. Your right brain then can correct the information and fine tune it through a part of the brain called the anterior gyrus, right? Which is tied to the silver cord of the great mother. Right? In the loves of the world are those things of gold that is tied to the heart through the great father. Right? And when you take your ascending energy and descending energy and you balance the two, right, then you become the point of focus for the two to balance. You are the crosshairs in the scope.
Hey, Rod, Rod, real quick, why is the cord of the great mother silver? Why is it silver? Why silver?
The energy, the lunar energy is silver. And when you see it astrally, it's silver energy. When you see the father connection to his children, even if he don't have a relation, it's always gold.
Right.
So they tell you about the silver key and the gold key. Astrology. Excuse me. Need some drink.
Take your time, brother. Take your time. Shout out to everybody in the chat. We got about 3,200 people in the chat. We going in. Beautiful conversation. We're talking about the ether.
Astrology is when you're trying to develop the father mind, and it starts to cross over into astrology. Now you're starting to be introduced to the mother mind, because astrology and astronomy go together. Right? So the gold keys are to study astrology and astronomy, the stars. The silver keys is the reading of the tarot deck, which is oracle training tools for your right brain. The goal is to sync your left brain, father brain, with your right brain, so that you no longer in your wrong mind, but you in your whole mind. This is going back to being holistic in your approach. That's why you say don't take sides. They telling me Abraham's story. I wasn't there. I ain't never met this dude they calling Abraham. So how I'm going to argue with somebody whether Abraham did something or didn't, because I'm quite sure that everything he did in his life is not in that one little old book. It does not tell us where he pooped at. Nowhere in there has ever told us where anybody pooped at, except for King Saul when David cut his cloak. He shit in the cave. Other than that, there's nowhere where it's telling us how did they go about making a living. Which one of them was the Godfather and which of them was the Capadon? They don't tell us none of that. But we will argue you down that Jesus said something and ain't never one of us seen it come out Jesus' mouth. We don't know what Jesus said. We know what they told us Jesus said, but we don't know what Jesus said. So the elders said, when you get past to that point, you stop reading it as words and stories and start reading what energy is this projecting. Why is it projecting my energy in this direction? And if it's directing my energy in this direction, why is it directing my energy away from that direction? Maybe I should look both ways before I cross this street. Right? Because somebody wants you to look at something a certain way. If they can't convince you to only see it how they see it, right, then you will only go along with what you won't go along with their program unless they can convince you that their program is better for you than your life purpose.
Man, wow.
Some people's life purpose align with the exploiter's ambition.
Yeah.
Right. But that's the control of that energy, that same ether energy, and how it's expressed in the world around us.
Rod, I told you I wanted to as we wind down. I think this might be the last question of the night. I told you that I was doing a documentary on the Black Sun. I want to ask you now, Rod, what is the connection between this ether energy and what we know as the Black Sun?
The Black Sun is really talking about the night sun, which was the moon of Saturn called Lilith. That's really what the Black Sun is. The Saturn energy is all to conceal the Lilith energy, which was the Dark Mother. The Dark Mother is always referenced in the ancient cults of the world. She's always talked about. In India, she's the Dark Mother Kali. And when you see her in the rage, that's the mother in her protective energy taking heads to protect her children. Right? When you see her in Kemet, she becomes Sekhmet when she's enraged. She's the Dark Mother. She takes on the protective nature of the cat. When you get another one in Egypt was the hippopotamus. Tawaret, the Great Mother, the Dark Mother, the primordial goddess of creation, fiercely protective of her children. But when you see her in the Temple of Dendera on the roof, you notice that she has what looks to be a meat cleaver in her right hand, right? So all of these is tracing you back to that same energy and that same frequency.
Indeed. No, indeed, definitely. All right, so family, so I think we're gonna I'm trying to think. I think we're gonna wrap that up for tonight. Let me get to one question from the chat. Let me get to this question. Shout out to Jordan sent the super chat. The one question I'm gonna get to is from on Rod. I see somebody asked earlier in the super chat. Let me put Rod's Cash App up here. Hold up, yo. Give me a second. Rod Hayes, give me a second. No, that's the. Give me 1 second. Be patient, family. All right. Let's put this up before we get to this last question. Let's put this on the. Where is? All right. If you want to support the brother Rod Hayes, for those who want to inquire, some of us remember it by now. The brother's been on the platform for about 2 years now. You can hit him up on the Cash App at $SIK8, capital SIK, capital APE. All right. But the one question I want to get to, shout out to Jordan for sending the super chat. He wants to know, Rod, you said they mixed the third dimension as an infinity loop. How does this correlate to life already being infinite? And what can we all do about it? We'll end the show with that, Rod.
Okay, so the infinity loop is really it's to stick you in a state where you can't really see what you're doing because you're living in two dimensions simultaneously. Nature has to resolve that. So the resolution in nature, you are oscillating between dimensions, the same as when we talked about flux flow earlier, moving in and out of dimensions. When you sleep, you go live whole lifetimes sometime in one night. Sometimes people have 4 or 5 dreams that's over 12 hours long in the dream, but when you wake up, you only been asleep for a couple of hours. That's because you interdimensionally shifting and you fourth dimensional matrix as the dreamer, what we call the astral realm. The physical realm is the 3D where everything is believed to be solid. But when you get closer and closer with microscope, you find that nothing is connected. It's space between everything, even the most densest thing. The illusion of density comes in as the separation between things, right? So everything has what's called a physical form, and the physical form is a reflection of the astral form. In the current paradigm we in, there's no mythical beast of the world. Everything is humans and what we call base animals, right? But it was another era where we had unicorns, fairies, gnomes, trolls, and all that stuff. And a lot of those stories are legends, like the Skinwalker story is about the tribes that covered themselves in the skins of the local animal in order to go to war in stealth against their enemy, right? So we wear wolves, but they suck blood, werewolves and vampires. Talking about the people of the land versus the people that came. Characteristic difference defining the separation in the two. So when they opened up in the Atlantean era, at the end of Atlantis, what caused the collapse was they opened up a portal. The portal was between the third and the fourth dimension. In order to create a barrier, they blew a collider similar to Hadron Collider in CERN, and they blew a nuclear explosion in there, which caused the third and the fourth to buckle like a slinky spring gets stuck. And that way that we could be in the right side up for so long, but then we in the upside down for so long. And this is what they call the Lucifer lens flip, when you're able to see the upside down when you're in the upside down, and you're able to see the right side up when you're in the right side up. Right, that's called the Lucifer lens, the ability to see fourth and third dimension for what it is instead of what you was told to think it is. Right, that's one of the prerequisites to activating all of your psychic abilities, is to be able to see clear in the dream and while you're awake, so that you'll know which state of condition you are in and which work you need to do. We needed to get out of the infinity loop, and we have to match up a redemption process, a redeemer, with an astrological event called a Muhurta. When the Muhurta come around, that is the keyhole that flips us out of the infinity loop. And that's how we got back on the track to the fifth dimension, by putting it into the public awareness of the Muhurta in sufficient amount of understanding to allow us to jump the infinity loop to get on track to the fifth dimensional matrix, which is going to unlock a lot of the disabilities and turn them into abilities. They call it X gene activation in the in comic books, and they call it that also in the scientific world, the X gene activation or the junk genes activation. They know it's coming, and they know it's predicated on the solar event, and they know that there's going to be a Schumann response, and they softly disclosing it. Yesterday, they had a hearing about ships and UFOs and in
Right.
DC. Allegedly, I don't think nobody really there.
Mm.
I think it's all a stage show.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I
Mm.
think we're gonna all be told about it, and it'll all be exposed coming up soon, because too many things are converging at the same concept of closure.
Right. Indeed.
And it's the disclosure is going to bring about the closure. My only concern is that people panic out of ignorance because nobody's been informing us enough on what's taking place so that we can prepare ourselves to not be in the way of the problem getting cleaned up and getting cleaned up with the problem.
Yeah.
That's what my biggest concern is right now.
Hey Rod, man, I want to thank you once again, man, for coming on the channel, coming on the show. Me and Rod, actually, we're gonna do a Patreon soon. Just been super busy, so I haven't been able to link up with Rod, but we're gonna do a Patreon within the next week. We got this ESP series going, and I want to do a continuation from the last show about extrasensory perception and our ability to tap into that. So for those of you who are on Patreon, stay tuned for that. Within the next week, I'm gonna hook up with Rob. We're gonna do something with the next week about ESP and extrasensory perception and tapping into that. And I feel as though that's one of the
I
most.
was over here giggling to myself, brother Rich.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know that when you call me up on the phone, this same way this show goes, how we be talking.
Same way. Same way. It be smooth like a bug. We just be chilling, vibing. We just, if we recorded them conversations, Rod, the internet would go crazy. They'd be like, oh shit, he was it'd be Rod be dropping shit, man. We just be like, and I'll be absorbing it and like, it's dope. It's dope, y'all. It's dope. So shout out to Rod. This is why I always tell you to make sure you support the brother. The brother put in so many years of. He gave us the cheat code. He put in 15 years of information condensed that we can learn.
30.
Yeah, and we're learning it in hours. We just have to apply it in the right manner. But the brother's a blessing to our community. Make sure you'll support him and what he's doing. Whenever the brother has anything coming up, I know the brother's gonna come out with books soon or whatever. So make sure you support the brother. With that being said, Rod, tell the people your Instagram, because I know that's how they could contact you. So they can.
Well, I haven't been posting on Instagram because I've been in Instagram jail, but my Instagram is Sick8. THGSIKAPE. And my Facebook, where I've been posting, I went on a rant a little earlier today. Okay. Is Rod Hayes. My profile picture and my background always changing depending on the message I'm giving. I post there's something different.
Right. Indeed. Hey, and I want to thank everybody. Thank to Jordan. Rod, you see my name at the bottom. I'm officially hey, it's Radiohead Rich now, Rod. It's official. I done graduated, man. Listen, shit. I'm in direct communication with my higher self.
When Elijah came up with that term, we didn't have a common use term called telepathy. We didn't know there was no term called ESP. That didn't exist.
That's how far ahead of his time he was, bro. That's how far ahead of his time he was.
The only thing that he can compare the experience to let people of his day understand what he was trying to tell them is by calling them a Radiohead.
Damn.
When we was just going over the epigenetics aspect of downloading the information and all of the membranes feeding the auric field the information for the brain to take it in through the nerve network or the mycelium network of the human body, and transfer it to the human brain for processing, refinement, and delivery into the focus because you're looking at it, you the observer. So between your collaboration with the ether or the spirit of the great mother is how you focus the collapsing of the wave into the particles that manifest as your 3D life. Right? And onlookers contributing the observer effect by non-participation. Because the more observers with there's non-participants, then the more they follow your observation. Right. You give your observation as a synopsis in order for them to know if they want to give it attention or not, in order to bring about the inevitable changes that need to be made. Right. So the secret societies know by promoting the worst parts of society, it'll compel the people that's being done the worst, that has the strongest capability to say enough is enough, frustrated enough if they can withstand the chapter of misery, that when they do say enough is enough, everybody know they ain't playing. And then because they're gonna start having the ear of all sides.
Right.
All sides want the truth more than they want the narrative. And when you giving them the truth and you not trying to control the narrative, you telling them, you go look over there and you see for yourself. But don't take sides with me and nobody else. That way you can keep your observations under your control. Meaning you can collapse your wave into the particle of the 3D life that you choose. All right. And all of your energy focus, that communication is always taking place. And that's how we driven in these human meat suits as radio heads driving across the terrain in our avatars.
Indeed. What a way to end the show. Indeed, what a way to end the show. Listen, I want to thank everybody. We gotta listen, family. We got a global audience. We got 3,000 people right now, right? We got people earlier who said they were from Ghana. We got people from all over the world that tune into this platform, that we will be surprised of who watches this show. So shout out to everybody all over the world, all colors, who watch this show, and come to my world, Brother Rich world, and see what, and get my perspective and the guest perspective. And it's a beautiful thing that, y'all could appreciate us being ourselves. Rod do what he do, I do what I do, and we're able to all learn from each other. I always have a magnificent chat. Y'all sharing magnificent stories and comments in the chat. So it's just all around a magnificent experience. And Rod, I want to thank you once again, my brother. Keep doing your thing. I'm gonna call you soon. Me and Rod's gonna do this Patreon within the next week. So I'll call you within the next couple of days to set up the Patreon. With that being said, Rod, we getting out of here, my brother. Signing out. I'll talk to you soon, my brother.
All right. Peace, brother Rich.
Peace, family. See you next time.